Welcome to Revolutionize Your Retirement Radio, bringing you insights and strategies to help you create a magnificent and fulfilling second half of life. Here's your host, certified professional retirement coach and best-selling author, Dr. Dorian Mintzer.
I want to welcome all of you to my fourth Tuesday Revolutionize Your Retirement Interview with Expert series to help you create a fulfilling second half of life. I'm Dorian Mintzer, owner of Revolutionize Retirement and also your host of the series. And we're in for a treat. I want to introduce this dynamic duo of Lynne and Josh Berrett. I'll just mention I met them years ago in 2007 at a positive aging conference. And actually, Lynne and I met through Mentor Coach when we did our coach training, again, a long time ago. And it's been wonderful to know them, at times to visit, to meet at conferences with people. So let me tell you a little about Lynne to start with. She's the executive director of the Ageless Mind Project, which is a 501c3, and of also Whole Brain Health. It's a Center for Lifelong Learning in the Virtual World of Second Life. And she's been involved in that since 2015. And she's been widely recognized for her leadership in lifelong learning and her work in positive psychology. Josh Berrett, Dr. Josh Berrett, teaches music history courses for the Lifetime Learners Institute in Norfolk, Connecticut, and on Zoom for AMP. He also teaches a sociology of music course online for Mercy University in Dobbs Ferry, New York, where he's professor emeritus and has published several books on music and culture. As I said, I met Lynne and then subsequently Josh, and I've also been part of some of the music programs that Josh has had, so I can just swear by how wonderful and important it is of discerning and listening and how important it is for our brain development and health. And I've also had the honor of working with Lynne in this virtual world of Second Life, where she'll hopefully tell us about it too. But once a month, I facilitate a wisdom circle there in the virtual world. And it's been really quite wonderful and stimulating. And I just love doing it. As I said, you're in for a treat. So let me turn to our wonderful guests. And maybe we should start off a little bit with just a discussion about what is your definition of an ageless mind?
Thank you so much for a wonderful introduction too, Dory. It's a good question. We wanted to make sure that people understood how we're looking at it because it's metaphorical here. So for us, particularly the word mind means the totality of our experience, our physical, cognitive, emotional, and spiritual self as a whole. We're very holistic in our approach. Ageless means a stable inner sense of self supported by character strength, the resources you can draw on to keep yourself healthy as you age.
And project means we are committed to actively utilize knowledge to keep our minds ageless. That is, our minds being alert, active, engaged, creative, curious, flexible, and open, even though we know there are no absolute guarantees we can do this to the end, but we intend to do our very best, nevertheless.
Yes, it's a working, in both senses, definition.
And has the definition changed as you've been developing these programs, or does this definition and sort of the expansion of aging as a time of growth and transformation, has that continued throughout?
I'd say it started in a narrower way, and that is back in the 1990s, mid-1990s. My mother came to live with us because she developed dementia. And it was a big shock to us all, actually, though we should have looked back and seen signs of it. But especially at that time, people were not as aware of the sort of development of it. So when she came to live with us very suddenly, actually, because she had a sudden deterioration, we were just overwhelmed.
It was a wake-up call, nevertheless.
It was, yeah. But we were really unprepared. And at that point, very little was known. There was a lot less research. Nowadays, most of the things that we researched back then are common knowledge about things you can do to hopefully stave off dementia or reduce the likelihood of it. But back then, my Bible then was a book called The 36-Hour Day. Because I just didn't know what to do. And Josh and I were in this together. Our kids were growing out of the house. My mother was with us. We were working full time. We were in our mid to late 50s at the time, the age our kids are now. So with that, basically, we decided that we needed to do something to prevent our family from going through what we were going through.
Yes, I might just briefly add that I had an older brother, 18 years older than me, who was like a surrogate father, who developed issues as well as his wife had problems. And it became necessary for me to assume a power of attorney for him. So that was all part of the process of becoming proactive in this whole idea of ageless growth, so to speak.
Yeah, it was a shock at the time. So that
process.
Yeah. So we started out, I think at the time, that's when we started thinking about working together, actually, because Josh was a college professor and I had a private practice as a therapist and as a coach. I also worked at a college as a counselor. So we were very busy, but we felt we were in it. I have to give Josh so much credit with my mother. I have to say that having someone who was there with me through that process was very important. And we worked together. His brother and sister-in-law ended up in a residence. She was in the memory care unit. And it was a very difficult period of about 10 years for us. What we started to do that I think saved our sanity was to think about what could be done to improve our situation in the future, possibly.
Or even being proactive and minimizing the chance that we would become a burden to our own children. The idea of being self-sufficient and independent to the very end, if possible.
Yeah, for as long as we could be. And so far, we're both in our mid-80s now. We've done an okay job with that, so we're very thankful.
I think you've done a more than an okay job, but it is so interesting, and it's not unusual that our kind of personal experiences with seeing what happens with memory, and I guess the closing in that can happen in later stages of life, or even sometimes earlier stages of, and then thinking about the juxtaposition of how to remain as expansive as we can, or how to keep the brain developing. I think the work you're doing is so wonderful. So that's helpful to hear a little of the impetus for it. And then, so you initially started, I guess, in 2007 when I first had met you at the first Positive Aging Conference, Lynn. So what's maybe share a little of the history from 2007 on and how it's evolved?
Back in 2007, we started with a blog called Music and Happiness. And maybe some of the people listening were even subscribers to it at the time. But we were trying to connect Josh's interest, his expertise, and his enthusiasm for music as a healing kind of thing with positive psychology, which is the mentor coach program we were part of, the coaching program.
Really, how certain kinds of music help reinforce character strengths.
Right. So we connected the two, and that's how we started working together, actually, I guess you could say online. And for us and people, we interviewed people about the music they loved. So we had some audios of those kinds of things too.
Not only music they loved, but how music helped them overcome certain crises in life's journey. I think that was very powerful.
Yeah. Yeah, we still have those audios from that. So that was the start of it. We did blogging until 2015, actually. And then during that period, it evolved as we were going to conferences and we were presenting these very experiential kinds of programs. I think you may have attended one or two of those.
Yeah.
Where
I was going to say, I think I've been at most of these.
up and dancing and doing things with bodies, because music is really a whole body experience as well as brain. We called it music is brain food because music really is brain food in so many different ways, so many different ways it can be used. You talked about memory, for example.
Yes, it's always fascinated me that certainly in the English language, we attach the possessive pronoun my to music much more than any other kind of expressive form. They're singing my song, that's my kind of music. And as I've discussed in my sociology course, we know from embryology that the human ear is the very first sense organ to develop in utero, and there's incontrovertible evidence that starting around the 18th week of pregnancy, the fetus can respond to sounds that the mother is hearing. It's really incredibly powerful. And it becomes, in a way, a precondition for the acquisition of language, pitch differences, rhythms, and so on.
And you talked about different kinds of memory that are related to music, too.
Oh, very much. There's a song memory that people know about, and the whole idea that there are all kinds of associations we have with music that help define the different stations on life's journey. And I think that is, in fact, that is one of the key questions I have in my sociology of music class. Fairly early on, I ask students to talk about this very issue, or even if they are married, what was the discussion like about the music you wanted played at your wedding? Differentiating between maybe the wedding ceremony itself and then the reception afterwards. And how did you keep your in-laws happy at the same time? Kind of thing.
It's very generational.
Right.
That's for sure. Yeah. So that we were doing that for a number of years. And then about 2011, actually at a positive aging conference, I was introduced to the virtual world of Second Life, which I knew nothing about. And I was in my early 70s by this point. So it was a big leap of faith to try to enter a whole new thing. But I think that related to what we've been doing, it made it easier for me to make that jump. Thinking about it now, that we already decided we wanted to keep expanding our perspective and our horizons. So even though a virtual world was quite a new idea to me, I saw the potential to reach many more people with the things we were doing. And that's basically the reason I entered it. And I've been there now at 11 years. I'm really active in it and have done so many things with so many people I would never have met otherwise. It's quite an amazing experience that I hope I'm trying to bring more people to understand its value for their brain and for your general well-being to have access to things like a virtual world. So that's where I developed a program called Whole Brain Health, which was based on training I had done on brain health with a wonderful person named Dr. Cynthia Green, whose program Total Brain Health focuses on all the research that's available and how to use it. So I learned a great deal from her in a very holistic kind of way.
And she actually was a guest of mine through your introduction and your interview. But that was through you. Yep.
I remember that. Yes. Still doing programs mostly with senior residences, places where people live together. Whereas I think places like Second Life are very important for people who are living alone, living in places where they won't have access to a lot of other people with similar interests and that sort of thing. It connects you in a way that may be impossible in your physical life. And that's one of the reasons I'm so interested in it. So that led in 2015 to our deciding to expand further, to go beyond music and beyond the brain, and to think even more holistically about what we wanted to have, which was what I'm calling an ageless mind.
And so can you just maybe elaborate? Let me backtrack, because throughout, as you said, even with dealing with your mother and Josh's brother and sister-in-law and all, you've really been this incredible duo and combining the interest in the positive psychology and music. And I'd love to hear a little too about how it's been walking the walk, in a sense, working together, because it really has been just a wonderful partnership that's evolved. So I wonder if you could speak to that a little bit.
Would you call it a wonderful partnership?
Maybe that's
Oh,
It involves,
from the outside.
sometimes it's a lot of Sturm und Drang.
Yeah, I can imagine that too, right?
We're
So
both
there's
of us
something
very
about doing this. Yeah.
It's interesting because I think that earlier when we were raising our kids and working and so on, we had support each other by one of us would be home when the other wasn't, things because we had extremely busy lives. I trained as a psychotherapist in my 40s. Before that, I had been an English professor.
Hmm.
And so I had to go back to school, work full time, and we were raising our kids. So we were doing it certainly as partners, but not in the way that we were able to do later. I think that it's been a gift of growing older that we have decided and found it very satisfying to begin to work together more and find where our interests converge. Poor Josh does not have a musical person as his wife, unfortunately. I love music, but I am not somebody who is a musicologist. I'm a word person. So he has to accept that about me. And
you do have the opportunity to perform with other musicians. I mean, a semi-professional orchestra and get involved with repertoire and stuff like that.
on the boards
Sit
of
on
these
the board.
smaller
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah.
Right.
So we're very active that way.
Yeah. Oh, you're both terrific in those things. Yeah. Go ahead.
I think
Yeah.
it doesn't have to be just your husband or your partner. I think that connecting with other people who approach life the way you do is extremely important.
Yeah. Finding
And-
kindred spirits.
Yeah. And that's
Right.
one of the reasons we really have been focusing on our more recently on the way we're moving with Ageless Mind Project. We started with doing workshops in person places, and we tried doing something like a blog, which is a one-way communication with our audience online. And so we realized this cross-fertilization we have developed through this process is important with other people too. And so we've been reaching out to other people to participate with us in developing the Ageless Mind Project. And that has been wonderful for us, and I hope fertile for other people as well.
So can you speak a little bit more before I get into that question? I just want to, because Susan has asked, given the effect of loneliness on well-being, how does Second Life help? I thought maybe we should just, before we move on to the project,
That's a wonderful
comment on that. Yeah.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Thank you for that question. Yeah. That's one of the things I have noticed about Second Life. First of all, there is a huge disabilities community, people who are deaf, blind. One person I know of is paraplegic, who are very active in Second Life because as avatars, they can do things they can't do anymore in real life. In fact, somebody who works very closely with me is a woman who was in business, and then she developed a degenerative disease that's hereditary, and that confined her to her home in her 40s. So she's now in her 50s. We have a very intergenerational group there too, which is very nice. She's in her 50s, and she started writing poetry in Second Life, and there's a big poetry community there. So there are many places to read your poems. People are very supportive of each other. And she, in fact, once a month, like Dory does, comes in and does a program us called the Writer's Table, where she does a little research on some kind of artist and then invites a little group that comes to write poems or anything they want to write actually about it. So people get together in groups, and they're from all over the world. And they enjoy those kinds of things they would not be able to do if they were home just in their house alone. They could not reach out to other people. So that I think, and the fact that it's available 24/7 in any kind of weather, anywhere you live, if you're on the internet, for you to interact with other people and find, as Josh says, kindred spirits, to me is one of the great, most valuable things about something like Second Life. It's a very large community of people. When I go online, there are usually about 40,000 people on at the same time.
Amazing. It's amazing what you've set up there. And Jenna asks, laughing trick question, she says, about this wonderful partnership. She's wondering what both of your biggest takeaway is from spending time in and offering programs in virtual reality. How can the two realities cross-fertilize or cross-pollinate one another?
I think that's something we are exploring now, actually. I've been trying to do this. Actually, the reason Dorian knows about Second Life is that in 2016, I got a group of college students who were going to show older people how to use the technology. And most of them were going to show older people how to use the iPad. So I came into the classroom. I'd met the professor actually at a positive aging conference and got about 8 students to come in and learn what we were doing in Second Life and then be guides for one-on-one with a senior. And Dory was one of the people who was willing to be one of my, what do you call it?
Guinea pig in it.
Guinea pig. That was about it.
Great. Yeah.
So,
it's wonderful.
Yeah. And she learned the rudiments that way. And so we've been trying to bring people in to Second Life because I think that being in world is a very interesting experience. Being an avatar is actually being in your avatar body. There's been a lot of research on this, interestingly. You begin to really identify with your avatar and feel as though, even though you're sitting and typing away at your computer, that you are actually in the experience with other people. One of the things that I've been trying to do, and we did a little bit last year, we had a full aging conference in Second Life, and we brought in people not only who were there, and many of them are professionals who enjoy being in Second Life as well as doing their professional work. We also had people come in through Zoom, and so they were able to participate with us in a mutual sharing, mutual experience. And I'm exploring ways to do even more of that for people now that Second Life is coming onto iPads as well, to be able to have more people participate with us in events like your Wisdom Circle, for example, Dory.
Right. Yeah. That's so great to hear. So I have another question, and then we'll move into the kind of the project now, but a question, well, to both of you. But Josh, you mentioned before about music and strengths, and can one or both of you talk a little about the role of music and how to think about how to, I guess, develop our strengths, or maybe develop some of the lesser strengths, and how music fits into that? And maybe that's part of the new project now. So go whichever way you want with my question.
Okay. What I find fascinating, we've laid out our underlying premise that you need to be open and receptive to all kinds of ideas. I should go back and maybe bring up the fact that one of my transformative experiences as a musicologist was when I spent some time at the Institute of Jazz Studies in the late 1980s, and I ended up doing a project that really transformed not only my life, but the thinking of a lot of other professionals. It's an article you can find online. It's called Louis Armstrong and Opera. And it actually vividly demonstrates how operatic excerpts are interspersed within his improvisations as part of a kind of stream of consciousness. I actually transcribed solos, some of which might in real time run to maybe 30 or 40 seconds, but you might find 4 or 5 different allusions to very diverse kinds of music, including opera. And what this has reinforced in me is that every experience you have is an amalgam. It's a hybrid of so many other elements, and it sensitizes you to the rich diversity that you can really find enriching from human experience, broadly speaking. As far as character strengths go, I think one of my favorite examples is Ludwig van Beethoven. There are all kinds of examples in his music and in terms of his letters and his famous artistic credo / suicide notes called the Heiligenstadt Testament from 1802. He was so depressed that he almost committed suicide, but he says it was my art that held me back, and art there meaning a more elevated form of expression, something that could inspire human beings. So I've drawn upon that for a number of posts dealing with his music and character strengths and trying to triumph over adversity.
And talking about, the character strength that way too, I think that sometimes the music you choose can be very helpful to you in becoming more creative. I think creativity and self-expression are extremely important for human beings throughout their lives. And to be seen, to be visible to other people, to be heard by other people, really, I think keeps us healthy in a way. So if you can use your character strengths to get that result, to feel that you count in some way, I think is one of the things that gives us the health span we're looking for.
That's excellent. And we really are talking about health span, not just lifespan, the quality of life.
Absolutely.
That's so important. And I think the other part that's emerged, I guess I've been aware of it from 2007, maybe before, but thinking about the late Gene Cohen and the idea, and music works with both hemispheres of the brain and all. Can you maybe speak a little to that? And then we'll then move a little bit more into the kind of things you offer with this project. But
talk about music being in all parts of the brain.
Well, I think the number of neuroscientists like Daniel Levitin who've written extensively on this, the fact is that it is a kind of expression or experience that draws upon both the limbic system and the prefrontal cortex and God knows any number of other neural circuits that can be stimulated by the music. And it's fascinating that there is, going back historically in terms of Western culture, in Greek culture, you have the Dionysiac and the Apollonian apologies, the reflective and the more instinctual. And then there is also the role of certain mathematicians like Pythagoras, whom we studied in high school geometry with regard to the right-angled triangle. But he is often credited with applying numerical ratios to pitches that we take for granted, like the octave and the fifth and so on. And there's certainly intensely analytical / mathematical elements involved in analyzing music, especially on the more detailed level. And then you can just, of course, listen to it as an emotional experience. And it really is summed up for me in the fascinating connection between creativity and craft. How are certain effects created? How are they achieved? Because it seems to me that any piece of music, jazz, classical, pop, if it's going to really survive more than one season, it is usually very well put together. And just seeing how it's done, it's almost like taking apart a terrific recipe you have. What are all the ingredients that are mixed in there?
Yeah, I just wanted to add in a couple of things too, because I think that that kind of creativity he's talking about and being aware of how it works, going deeper into it, is something that I loved in literature when I was studying. That really seeing what made you feel the way you felt when you read a Keats poem, for example, added another dimension to it. And I'm thinking about this because I was talking to a woman recently, interviewing her for our Substack. And she's somebody who's retired. She was a former judge. And she was telling me that she began to enjoy bird watching. First of all, because she had a friend who died and she was having great difficulty with it. And somehow going out and watching birds helped her deal with that kind of thing. But then she wanted to know more about the birds. And she wanted to be out among them more and going different places to hear different kinds of birds and so on. She said it began a journey for her that she didn't expect, and she felt that somehow going more deeply rather than superficially into things was very important as she got older. And I thought that was a very interesting observation. Art.
That is. And the deepening the music, but also the nature. It's just the connecting to the world in an expansive, being open way, which is certainly a wonderful remedy for the isolation and closing in that sometimes can happen as we get older.
And being willing to be surprised.
That's great. Yeah, willing to be surprised. So tell us more about, and I'll come back. There's some other really good questions that we'll come back to a little bit later, but tell us more about the project. And you began to mention some of the in-person things. And I know Josh has some music you wanted to share of kind of what a little mini music moment was. Let's move to that a little bit.
Sure. So just let me say very briefly that everything we're doing is online. We don't have a brick and mortar anything.
Yeah.
So we use our newsletter, which is agelessmindproject.org. That's where the newsletter is. We have a Substack called Ageless Mind Project, and we have a Facebook group called Ageless Mind Project, and we also have the work we're doing in Second Life, which is all online too. So we're approaching it that way to reach more people, and because we think it's important for people to be involved and to be engaged with technology as they get older. One way we stay really connected to the world. I do want to say that there is sometimes a dichotomy people describe between as we get older, we should just let ourselves be and not do so much. And I perfectly understand what they're talking about. The idea is you don't have to strive all the time or be totally stuck in the present or whatever. I think it's really important. But that also brings up the fact that people have all different kinds of ways of aging healthfully. Not just our way, but there are a lot of different ways. We're offering a way that we find particularly rich for us.
Mm-hmm.
But that doesn't mean that other people's ways are not correct for them. Our goal really is to help people discover what ways of aging in the way they want to is best for them, what fits with their personality, their lifestyle. Very much it's not a one-size-fits-all thing. So
that's so important. Yeah, really important to say that this is one approach. Different things work for different people. Tied in a little. So now I am, before we get into the other part, Judy, who says, "Good morning, Liz." Lynn's name, she's Wisdom Seeker or Lucina.
Okay, it's Judy. Hi, Judy.
She said, "Do you have a strategy for assisting a group of isolated individuals connected only by the same home healthcare organization who's interested in supporting its happening to come in world at the same time to the same place?"
Judy has been one of our champions. So that's the whole idea of something like Second Life, where we can have a place for people who would like to be together as a group, even if they're from outside. There is a group. Coming in as a group works beautifully in a place like Second Life. There's something about the visual aspect of Second Life. I think you could say more to this yourself, Dory. That is very appealing. It's a very visual space. Right. Very bright. You can make your own things. You can build your own little house, or you can buy a house if you like and fix it up. It's like playing dolls, except that it's on a higher level.
It is amazing. And what Lynne has developed with this whole brain health, and there's this circle that we meet in, light a candle at the beginning for the wisdom circle. There's the strengths area. There's ponds, and it's phenomenal. And
I've
the end,
I have over 30 volunteers working with me. I have to say that. There are people who come toward me because they want to do the same kind of thing. So they provide so much of what you see there. I have to give them credit.
It is amazing. And maybe at the end, we can talk about what if people are interested, ways to be in contact to learn more about that part. But now back to the project part, but with a question from Susan, who said, who wrote the music and neurobiology book that you referred to, or the research that you were referring to, Josh?
I think I mentioned Daniel Levitin. He has several books out. One is What's Your Whole Brain?
This is Your Brain on Music, I think.
This is Your Brain on Music, the earliest one. Then there's
this newest one.
The World in
6 songs.
6 songs, and he's just come out with another book
on music, using music for health. Specifically.
Great. Okay.
He's also cited in this book that was edited by Renee Fleming, Music and Mind. There is a very good summary of a lot of his thinking early on in this book. It's one of these books published by Viking, Music and Mind, Harnessing the Arts for Health and Wellness. And it had the involvement of the NIH and some other power brokers in Washington, D.C. It's a very well-received book. Yes, it's very recent. Yeah.
Very recent. Good. All right. So now more to the projects and the kind of the mini, but what programs would you like to tell us about and have the listeners learn about? Yep.
Yeah, I thought today, just for fun, because we used to do this, we were doing things only on the phone.
Right.
We would do a little bit of giving you a different way of listening to some things. So Josh is going to do, like, as he said, a mini music moment for us.
Great.
Yeah, it's what I call mindful listening, focusing on specific details that will change your experience of something. And I'm going to start with something you hear at least once a year. It's called Happy Birthday. And what I want to impress on you is something very interesting about the melody. I'm going to sing it to you, and then I'll try to tell you what it's all about. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear whoever. Happy birthday to you. Now, what's very important to me is that there is a sense of building to a climax, because precisely before you mention the person's name, the person who's being celebrated, you have a leap of an octave. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear. Da, da, da. The leap of the octave is a very big deal in a lot of music, and it often is used to underscore something profoundly true. We know this from certain famous songs. One of the most famous ones is Over the Rainbow. Somewhere over the rainbow, way up high, etc. The point is, it's all about Dorothy and her dreams, but the sense of separation from her life in Kansas City with her dreams way up high, that becomes the driving force of the whole story. And that octave becomes an incredibly powerful metaphor. And the fact that it occurs early in the movie is extremely significant, because it's really the premise of her entire journey. So I'd like to move from that to another piece of music. Some of you on the call might have very well have sung in this or planned to sing in this. I'm thinking of the Hallelujah Chorus from Handel's Messiah. What's very fascinating here is that within the first minute of this very famous chorus, there is a shift in texture, the way the lines of music interact. You have a series of 10 exultant hallelujahs with the melody in the top voice, the soprano voice. Everything else is supported by chords in what is called a homo rhythm. It's a uniform rhythm. But then he completely changes his texture and introduces a critical phrase, "For the Lord God omnipotent reigneth," which is essentially the premise, again, upon which the entire Hallelujah chorus unfolds. And because of time limitations, I'm not going to play the complete chorus, but I will just tell people that part of the genius of this chorus is the way the textures are constantly shifting to reflect the nuances of the lyrics. And I will just remind people, in case you're unaware, that Handel was primarily an opera composer, that he turned to oratorio fairly late in life. The Messiah is from 1742, which is fairly far along in his career. But I want to start now. I'm just going to play the opening minute or maybe 50 seconds, and I'm going to call out these shifts in texture as they happen, and then I'm going to invite Dorian, anybody else, to say, did you hear what I was doing or what I was talking about? Do you have any reactions? Okay, so here goes.
So let me invite people, if you want to use the chat function, since everybody's muted, if you want to just share. If you could hear those shifts, I personally find it so helpful, Josh, and I know I've taken a few of your courses, one to Louis Armstrong, and there was another, I can't think of the title right at the moment, with the help of listening, I just find so helpful. So if any people have anything you want to share, you may or may not. So far,
well, I wanted to also,
Lynn?
I wanted to say that since John stopped teaching at the university, he's still teaching online one course set for about the past 25 years. But he teaches at a Lifetime Learners in Norwalk, Connecticut, which is a very, very active program there. And he's been doing that since 2012, teaching a course each semester. He's doing one this coming fall, in September, actually, on devils, witches, and the supernatural in music, which is going to be really interesting. We do it on Zoom. And so the people who are not in Norwalk can actually attend the class if they paid the initial fees, I think. And we use YouTube a lot. So you can watch the musicians while you're listening to it. And then Josh is bringing it all together for you. So that's another thing he does. Besides, he's on the process of writing a book right now, another book. And he's also offering these things through our Substack.
Yeah, that would be starting in
January.
And these sessions that I think will bring out my very broad but deep interest in a lot of different kinds of music, jazz, pop. And for example, one of the topics I want to talk about is the extent to which the Beatles drew upon classical composers in their music. There's a lot to talk about there, or Beethoven and his obsession with the da-da-da-da motif, which carries over into a lot of his music in many different ways, and stuff like Nessun Dorma, Puccini, etc. So a lot of different things.
So let me integrate a couple of questions and comment right now. Ellen from New York, from Brooklyn, says, what are the significance of the shifts?
What is the significance of the shifts?
The significance of the shift is to underscore a key phrase. For the Lord God omnipotent reigneth is the whole premise of the chorus, hallelujah. Why are you singing hallelujah in the first place? And by having both the entire chorus and orchestra sing in unison or in octaves conveys a sense of total unanimity. And this idea of singing in total unison or in octaves is really what you find in everyday life with people who are protesting against whatever it is, or people who sang, "We shall overcome." in unison. The sense we're together in this, folks, and the music is really what is binding them.
That's excellent. Yeah, so helpful to think about. And Meg from Cambridge says she knew what you meant by the shifts, but and she did comment, and it's true there was the volume was low, so a couple of the shifts got muted out, but part of it was there, and she just also commented she loves what both of you are doing.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Yeah.
So
I wanted to, if you don't mind, I want to make sure that we also talk about our other things that we're doing, with our Substack and our newsletter. And
I was just going to ask that. And with that, it's like, how do people, if they're interested, get involved with those things and sign up maybe for the Zoom class?
That's great. That's what I would like people to know about. So I want to just say most of all that what we're trying to do through our Substack, which is a place where people can interact with us, although we put the same material on our website, which is, as I said, agelessmindproject.org, that what we're trying to do is really build community with people, because we have found that when you're going to do these kinds of things, the more people who participate, the more we can learn from each other about ways that we might want to develop an ageless mind, to design one, to support one. So what we try to offer on our Substack and everything else we do is tools for people, especially tools that allow them to be creative in the way they're thinking, to open up to new kinds of ways of being, and to deepen maybe the ways they already enjoy. So we offer information, we offer links, we offer technique, we offer encouragement and support. And one of the things that we've enjoyed very much is that people have been sending us things that we post on Substack and our website. People have offered us poems and pictures and even just little comments, essays. One person talked about walking in London. She began to think about, walking is an experience that I can really mindfully do. And this is what it feels like to me to do it. So we want people to be able to give to each other and to learn from each other in this site. You want to say?
With regard to this series of sessions I'm planning starting in January, I'd like to invite anybody and everybody to send in information about their favorite songs and questions about those songs that they have. I'd be very happy to see what they come up with and whether there are any things they're curious about, anything they want me to unpack, whether they have questions of any sort, in fact.
You can do this on Substack, because we post those in the comment section below for people. And if you don't like the Substack, you can always write to us directly.
So let me ask another question. I think I interrupted you with bringing in the questions, but you were starting to talk about unpacking some of the things about the Beatles. Can you just finish that kind of thought? I really didn't mean to interrupt and I don't know if there were other things you wanted to say about it, but I did want to kind of notice it and come back to it.
This is not speculative stuff. It's been documented. For example, there's a song, Blackbird, that has been mentioned as something inspired by one of the bourrées of Bach. There are connections between Beethoven's Moonlight Sonata and a song called Because, and so on, and stuff like that. There have been certain triggers that have made a big difference. And some of these ideas originated with producers like George Martin and so on. And it was really, in some ways, a collaborative endeavor. But the fact is that there were these classical models. There's also a connection that has been made with Xenakis and Stockhausen, who were cutting avant-garde figures in the 1960s. And people often look at the cover of Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band, which in a way, is it visualizes all their multiple influences that they feel they drew upon.
Great, thank you. So more about the goals, more about the community, and any more you mentioned about the woman in London. Have there been any more outcomes or feedback from participants who've been part of the program that might be helpful for people to know about?
I think that the fact that people have been participating is very important. In Second Life, we have a very big community that's been going on for 10 years and more now. So that's where I have been starting out. We've been bringing this over to Substack fairly recently. So we're still building there and connecting many of the people who have contributed to our Substack actually are people excuse me, we know from Second Life. So that's been very nice to have them come over and talk about their experiences with nature. For example, we've been focusing on nature recently, but we're going to be talking much more now about some of the tools you can use to develop your own kind of ageless mind. I think that's an important thing for people to know. And we've drawn on some people we know from Second Life again who are scientists and who've talked about the health aspects from a scientific standpoint. So we'd like to know from people, and we're going to be putting up a survey soon on our Substack and other places that we post things to ask people what they're particularly interested in, because we have people we can call on who can write articles, post things with us, talk about them in various ways. So the more that we know what people want, the more we can provide what you need. I was just reading something about this woman who died at the age of 117. And I thought, when I read it, I thought, this is what we're talking about, because they were saying that her focus on, I'm going to quote from this, order, tranquility, contact with nature, emotional stability, no regrets. These are the things that she felt contributed to her long life, along with good connection with family and friends, lots of positivity. Oh, and she was also somebody who used mass communication at that age. She actually had her granddaughter help her post on X.
Wow. It's thinking about all this positive psychology, opening, growth mindset, learning, creativity, music. It's all so important and helpful. So I know you've touched on it, but again, how can some of the listeners get involved? What would be the call to action in a sense?
I think the first call to action is to answer our survey when you see it on the site. And the second thing is to first thing is to subscribe to our newsletter and to our Substack, which is free. So join us that way. So we know you want to be involved. You can leave a comment when you join. So let us know you'd like to be involved more. And we are very excited to build on the people who join us. Because talking to the wind is not fun.
It's the whole building community that you're talking about. Now,
we've done it in a little bit of life, and we expect to be able to do it, connect the two. People from Second Life coming over to our Substack and so on, and people are Substack coming into Second Life or coming. I'm going to be offering ways for people to at least experience it with me using Zoom. So I'll set up a couple of those sessions so you can see what I'm talking about.
That would be great, because I think so people will. So how will people know when those Zoom opportunities might be to learn about Second Life? Would that be the website, or would that be Substack, or both?
It would be all. We put everything everywhere. Every time we post anything on Substack, we post it on our website, on our LinkedIn page, on our Facebook page, and in our email to people. So it's all open to you. Just join one of them. Join too many, you'll get too many notices.
Now, also, I do want to honor that some people may have to leave right now, but I'd love you to just talk a little of how you now are a nonprofit. You've gone through the steps of becoming a 501c3. Can you mention that? Because maybe also helpful for people to know that people can be on Substack for free, but it takes money to run these things. So it might be helpful to just talk about that.
Thank you very much for that suggestion.
Yeah.
I'm very bad about that kind of thing, but it's absolutely true. We accept donations on our website. We accept them at Substack, and those things do really help us. We are also interested in getting funding. So the more we can build community and show a funder that we are really serious about what we're doing, the more likely we are to get some kind of funding. And there are people on this call, I know, who they spoke up a little bit here, who are working with us to do that kind of thing. And I so appreciate the feeling I have of our being supported in our mission, because when people hear about it, they really get excited. And we're not doing this, as I said, the community in Second Life from myself coming in alone to over 30 to 40 people who regularly volunteer programs there, like you, do programs. And so we're known. I won an award, a leadership award in Second Life because of the work.
Which is wonderful. Yeah. And I really do want to you've done such an amazing thing with
people. When I do the award, I accept on the behalf of our whole brain health community, our collective, because I could not have done anything without anyone. I can't do this without a lot of people being interested and being active in it.
So any final, let me just look if there are any other questions or comments. No, I think that we are. So what would be the final takeaways you'd like people to take from this, listening to the two of you?
Josh, I'll let you answer that question.
It seems to me we come back to the idea of total engagement, being receptive to new ideas, maintaining a level of curiosity and involvement.
That we would like to help people do more and do it in a group so that we can all really get what we can from each other. They take the village to raise a child, and it takes the community to create helpful aging, I think.
I think it's really true. And the whole idea that there's been this kind of loneliness and isolation epidemic. And as both of you at different points have said, it's like being community, the connection, engagement, purpose, and meaning, finding your tribe, being part and knowing we can all keep learning. I do think that's some of what each of you offers, which is so wonderful.
Yeah. And I want to say finally that this is not just for us individually. We feel very engaged with the general world, the state of the world. I watch the evening news at night. I watch music messages from Africa, messages, the kind of news coming out of Africa right now, for example. So many parts of the world, that staying engaged to be available to help other people is also, I think, part of our aging healthfully.
Absolutely. And can you, Lynne, just share again the Ageless Mind Project email where people can reach you and Josh?
It's actually the words agelessmindproject@gmail.com.
Great. Thank you both for taking this time and being with us and sharing this really wonderful work that you're doing. And I can speak from personal experience. I really recommend both the programs and classes that Josh has and Second Life, and they're wonderful communities. I know I'm a member of Substack, and I check out the website, and I really do encourage all of you to join in. It's a wonderful community. So thank you both.
You've been listening to Revolutionize Your Retirement Radio with Dr. Dorian Mintzer. To learn more about the resources mentioned on today's show, listen to past episodes, or download our free retirement transition guide, visit revolutionizeyourretirementradio.com.